Yes, let's hear it for a great film, the most biodiverse place in America, or maybe on the planet, as I heard some of the scientists say. I'm not sure, is John Fisk here? I heard rumor that there's like a soccer tournament advancement that may have caused a... But is Matt or Thomas or Stephen here? Well, I'd like to, I'm pretty sure I saw Captain Joe. I don't know if Clarissa is here or Dr. Martin. Come on down. One of the other scientists that was here, I thought I saw.
Clarissa was coming.
Oh, okay.
John is coaching right now.
So he's not just supporting, he's actually there. Which one is it? Do you know? Is it Johnny or Charlie who's in the tournament?
I think Johnny is.
Okay. Well, let's have a seat. Do we have any other scientists or educators out there in the audience? If you stand up, I just want you to stand up and be recognized if you happen to be a scientist or an educator. That's just so, and I consider you an educator for sure, doing what you do. What a wonderful film, and what a wonderful place we live in. I mean, living here, I'm sure many people feel it and know it, but I think sometimes you take it for granted after a while. It's any day, driving up and down the 5 past all the lagoons and just taking, and then people come, or you're with somebody from somewhere else and they're like, oh my God, look at that. It's kind of a beautiful thing. Tell us about what first, drew you to doing what you do with the boat and taking people out and educating people. Was it always the educating part, or were you commercial fishermen?
Sure. And first off, I want to say that I think John and the film crew, they did an outstanding job. I learned a lot just by watching the film, but also participating with them. And the best part of this also, you're viewing it through the eyes of his 2 sons. And that curiosity is contagious. I hope it is. But I just wanted to make sure that they got the credit for all of this. And I'll do my best to kind of represent the rest of the guides, the experts, and also John and the crew. But you asked how I got started. Initially, it was through sport fishing. And I did that for probably 15 years or more, primarily focusing on that, taking passengers out, children and adults. But that grew beyond, it went way beyond that. I actually started my ocean classroom program, where I would take students out on floating labs and I'd teach them about the ocean. Up till today, I've taken out about 15,000 kids from San Diego County and educated them. Try to show them what our life connection is to the ocean, the things that we get as human beings from the ocean that we need every day, food, water, and oxygen. This is an amazing fact that maybe people don't consciously think about or even know, but phytoplankton now, little microscopic plants in the water, in the ocean waters, they make at least 60% of the oxygen that's in our atmosphere and dissolve back in the ocean. 60%. Most people think that the oxygen that we need to live, to breathe, comes from land plants. Well, most of it comes from the ocean. So that was one of the things that I would be teaching these kids, that we depend on the ocean for our very survival. And through the years, that continued to grow. And I still presently am doing that with the kids. So that's how I got to this point. I took John and his family out sport fishing. John came up with the idea of this film, and we kind of collaborated with others, and we put it together.
It's a beautiful film. I think it's so important. I happen to be in the business of sustainability in the built environment, so where we all live, learn, health and things like that. We spend 90% of our lives indoors, so that's a lot of time. It's not a lot of time. It's too much time. Not a lot of time to get out in nature. So if you're spending that extra 10% outside of the average study, if you're spending that indoors as well, it can be a pretty bad situation. And the beautiful angle of this film, this story, is taking the kids out there and watching the kind of mental and physical health that happens by being out in nature, and then by learning and starting to be a stakeholder in that, or love it or enjoy it, or being inspired by it. The kids freaking out over the trapdoor spider. It's going to take that. They're going to take that away with them, and maybe learn to protect that, or then teach the next generation to have a stakehold in nature and where we live. Where do you embark from?
Yes, my boat, which is a Sea Star, we're in Oceanside Harbor, and I sail every day from the docks at the Oceanside Sea Center, which 8 years ago I put together this great partnership. So we have our sport fishing boats there, we have whale and dolphin tours that go out, and we also brought in our science partners, the Flager Institute of Environmental Research. They do sustainable fisheries research. So our hands are in quite a bit the different aspects of the ocean, education, recreation, and science. And that's where we're at. And I've been down there for over 50 years, so hanging in there.
Great work. There's so much education here. It's a wonderful part of the film festival. I learned this week that funding for environmental education, which it's not political, it doesn't mean sustainability or anything like that, but a lot of the education that you saw here would be environmental education, if that was being taught, or little programs brought in, or the field trips that you may be taking some of the kids on. That's considered environmental education. It's 7 cents is spent per student annually on that, but we see in films like this the incredible importance of paying attention to nature and the education about nature and its impacts, the impacts you may be having by just taking a hike down something that's not a trail. What was something, you said you learned a lot too. What was something that really gave you the kind of mind blow moment outside of your world that was a part of this film?
Trapdoor spider. Never heard of them. And there they are. Amazing creatures, 40, 50 years old, living in a hole that they create. It's amazing. And as you could see, right there at San Diego State, they're right next to a sidewalk.
I know that stair. I've traveled that stair hundreds of times to go to concerts at the San Diego Outdoor Amphitheater, parked in the structure or the parking lot over there before the structure even existed, and walked up those stairs to go over the ramp and to the concert hall. And I'm like, oh my God, they're right there on that stair. I'm going next week, right? Who's going on a hike next week, right?
Yeah.
Who's going on a boat? Who's going to Torrey Pines next week? Raise your hand. We've got to get out there.
And just to add to that, when you get out in the natural world, if you take the time to look, the more you look, the more you see. Sometimes it's the finest of details. You actually take a close look at a flower and see how intricate it is, or you see a bee and you look closely, whatever it might be, or a big animal. Like we had dolphins. 2 days ago, we had them riding right with the boat again. We had a gray whale came right up. But if you look closer, you see all of not only the detail of nature, but the diversity of it. But I would just encourage people to take the time to do that. And also, as you mentioned earlier, you do need to get out into that natural world. Yeah. It's going to do you good physically, mentally, but you're going to learn a lot. Yep.
Yeah, as a kid, I spent a lot of time outdoors in forest in Alabama, and then in the deserts and jungles of Mexico, and learned right away, when you're out there, just stop, just go slow, or don't move at all. And if you just walk through down the trail, you see some plants, you might see an animal or bird or something like that. If you go and you sit and you don't move and you're silent, nature will come out around you and you experience a whole lot more.
Yes, and one timely thing, and I'll just throw this in there. Last evening, I was down at the Bataquitos Lagoon in Carlsbad, and there's a wonderful trail that goes right along the northern edge of the lagoon. And I do some training there. I'm running up and down the trail. But it just amazes me. You're in the natural world there, and it's beautiful there. It's just so beautiful. People staring at their phones as they're walking down the trail, staring at their phones. Or there were two people side by side. They're not talking to each other, and they're not even looking around. They're looking at their bloody phone. So I almost want to go up and tell them, stop what you're doing. You don't know what you're doing. And I would love to see signs at some of these trails, cell phone, whatever, quiet area, whatever you want to say. But it's a sign of our times. See, you're starting to lose that connection and that appreciation of that natural world. So when you're out there, just put those phones away. Whether it's on the ocean, up in the mountains, sitting at the coast, looking out at the sunset, don't look at your phone anymore. Just put it away and take in nature.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said. Let's take, I think we have time for a few questions from the audience. Raise your hand if you have a question for Captain Joe. Right here. Yes, yeah.
I don't have a question, but I have a comment. I love the line in the film that said, when we don't participate in nature, we forget about it. And that really resonated with me. And I also love what you said, when you're on the boat and you're on the ocean, you forget about everyday life, and we become observant of nature. And we so need that, because we're so self-directed and so concerned about self. And we all need that. But that line was just resonated with me.
Beautiful. Yes, thank you. Yeah, our second film of the day, a wonderful major in the Marine Corps battling neuroendocrine cancer, stage 4 cancer. Her motto was "Emotion is medicine," and she talked about being out in nature, getting out and surfing as a part of medicine, and scientifically proven. Just that better test scores, better mental health, people just being out in nature and moving. Do we have another question? Right here in the back, gentlemen.
Hi, I've heard a lot about the kelp beds in your park. And when you kind of your current status and perspective, I heard something about the dissipation of the kelp beds.
Kelp beds.
There were some percentages of footage in the movie, and when you hear that part of it, and also second part of the question, if there's advised remediation for that, it seems like it's a precious resource in San Diego.
Yeah.
What could be done?
Yeah, did you hear that? About the kelp.
Background noise, I couldn't get
Yeah, it's hard. He's asking about the percentages that were presented in the film. Amazing little graphic with that was really impactful, I think, where it showed all the kelp beds and they shrunk and disappeared. Percentage of kelp beds going away and not really coming back, and is there some sort of remediation or some sort of solution to regrow or bring it back?
Yeah, so just in my experience, now I'm going to speak from about Dana Point to La Jolla. That's where most of my travels are on a daily basis. I think I mentioned it in the film, but we're down to about 10% of traditional coverage. There is kelp in some places in the shallower water, from 15 feet out to about 40 feet. When you get out into the deeper water, that deep water kelp is all gone. It does not exist. And part of that, I think, was, again, the light penetration, not being able to get down there, allow those kelp spores to actually start to photosynthesize and grow. But you did ask about mediation. One thing that we could do is remove nitrogen from the wastewater treatment, and we're not presently doing that. No one's doing it.
Or not enough? Like, does some of it need to be in there, or is it removed?
No, they do not remove any nitrogen, which is one of the nutrients, nitrates and phosphates, that it's just like fertilizer on your lawn. You put them out in the ocean and the phytoplankton just bloom. Well, now they're out there 24 hours a day, every day of the year, because we don't treat that wastewater and remove the nitrogen. I talked to a gentleman from the San Diego wastewater district, and he told me that, yes, we could do that, but it's more expensive and it takes more effort. But that could be done. Just you need to have the will to do it and the money. The second part of that is there are different groups now that are looking at kelp, but most of that, or the kelp status, the status of these kelp beds, a lot of that, though, is taking place in Central and Northern California. In my opinion, we're not doing enough down here in Southern California. You can transplant kelp, but I'm going to go back to my original statement. If you don't have the light penetration, you can transplant as many kelp plants as you want, and they're not going to prosper. Yeah.
Great.
I have a question.
Question here at the...
Yeah, Captain, what is your opinion of the Tijuana River situation? How far north is that polluting in your opinion?
Yeah, that's a great question. The question was the effects of that Tijuana sewage crisis. Actually, it's what it is. It's been ongoing for decades, but it's really reached a point now where it's completely unacceptable. Not that it hasn't been for all those decades, but it is now, and there is more attention. But we have to always remember that the ocean is a dynamic place. It changes. There's currents, there's wind, there's swells. The water is always moving, and what you put in the water down there, just below San Diego, downtown, it makes its way all the way up, and it'll circulate like this. It doesn't just move and go out to sea. It'll circulate. So we don't see the heavy sewage, actually, that's what it is, flowing up here in North County, but we certainly see the effects. And I think that's part of this nitrogen problem, too, that we're having. Yeah. And
Great.
Just remember, everything is connected. Everything that we do on land is connected to the ocean, because that's where it all ends up. And that's a perfect example.
Yeah, great. Thank you. I think last question here, ma'am. How long did it take to make the film? Do you know, Joe, by any chance?
It was over about almost a 2-year period, about a year and a half or so, and then they had to get into editing. But it took a while to get John and his boys through all those ecosystems. Yeah. You know, because you got to remember they're in school too, but they learned as much being out there in those different areas, and that was a good education for them also.
Yes, certainly.
It was just very recently. I mean, it just got onto the film festival circuit just last year, at the end of last year, and hopefully it's going to keep going through the different film festivals, and eventually we're hoping to get it on either a streaming service or one of the cable channels, so the rest of the public can really enjoy it.
Right. Great. Thank you so much. Thank you,
all.
Captain Joe.
Thank you.